and today we are starting a brand new series, a series on generosity. Oh, I got one person in the room. I know I just sucked the air out of the room. Whatever it is, there's something on this whole church and money talk, and I'm aware of it fully. As a matter of fact, instead of trying to tell you how it feels to preach to you about generosity, I thought I would show you. So I brought some memes this morning to break the ice a little bit. Some of you are like this when we start talking about generosity. You think that if the pastor doesn't see you, maybe he won't recognize that, maybe you don't have to give. He doesn't see me. Maybe you're like this guy and you're like, well, if you could talk about generosity all you want, my wallet's empty, so it's not going to change what I give or not give. Maybe you're like this, like when you hear generosity, you think, you get a car, you get a car, you get a car. So you don't even think of generosity as like giving, you think of generosity as like the church is going to give me a car. I don't know how you view generosity. Maybe it's like this, like he's talking about money, I'm going to give. I may not be able to pay my electric bill or get the kids Christmas presents, but I'm going to give to the church, bless God. Or maybe when you think of generosity, you think mine. Don't touch my money. Don't talk about my money. I think I have one more. Don't I have one more? Oh, no, I got two more. Maybe you're on the serve team in here this morning. You think, man, I serve all day long. So when they talk about generosity, they're not talking to me because I give of my time. Come on, somebody. I know. I'm coming in your kitchen really early this morning. I'm so sorry. Last one. Maybe you think when the generosity talks, maybe you think it's time for the pastor to get an upgrade on his house. I don't know what you think about generosity. Maybe it's all of these things. Maybe it's one or two of them. But I can tell you there's a lot in all of these that are not true. And so my heart really for the next 3 weeks is to teach you about the heart of generosity, the practice of generosity, and the impact of generosity. I think it's really interesting. If you were to ask somebody about my life, I would hope they would say, Pastor is a generous person. I hope that my wife would say my husband was a generous man. I think that it's one of the greatest qualities you can have is to be someone who others consider generous. A couple months ago, I was in a restaurant. I don't do it often, okay? So, but every once in a while, God will place something on my heart to pay for someone's dinner. In this particular case, there was someone in the restaurant. I didn't know them from Adam, but I felt like I was supposed to pay for their dinner. So I told the waitress, go ahead and just bring their bill to my table and I'll take care of it. And I felt, how that feeling when you're generous, you're like feeling like, I feel really good about myself right now. And I was feeling like that. And then she brought me the bill. And I don't know if they were like catering to a family of 18 or if they I don't know if they were celebrating something, but evidently they were, and all of a sudden I didn't feel as good about my generosity. I was kind of thinking maybe I'm not going to. Anyways, what it leads me to believe, generosity is one of those things that Jesus in the Bible tells us that it's not about a feeling, it's about an action. And can I just be truthful with you this morning? I can have the feeling that I want to be generous all day long, but until I act on that feeling, I'm not actually being generous. So that was the test for me. And what I want to tell you is I brought a few stats this morning because I just want to my heart is to kind of break down these barriers so we can just be real and vulnerable with each other. If y'all have been here for any amount of time, I don't hide from topics. I don't care if it's culturally inappropriate or if it's politically. I don't do any of that. If it's in the Bible, we're going to talk about it. And so I want to just break down some barriers on this. And some stats that I think you should know is that only 5% of Americans regularly tithe. Another statistic, among evangelical donors, the average donor gives only 2.8% of their household income to a church, which is down from 3.2% a few years ago. So it's not just low, it's low and getting lower. And the most recent stat here is about 75 to 90% of these are not just people who attend church, these are people who would consider themselves members of a church, do not tithe regularly. So when you see a church being able to accomplish great things for God, imagine what would happen if we flipped the script. And instead of 95% of the church not participating in generosity because somewhere along the line you read an article about how the pastor took the money and embezzled it and how they were doing this with the money, or they built this and they didn't think that, whatever you've heard, what if you just broke down your walls this morning and let your pastor teach you what the Bible has to say about this? Can you do that with me this morning? Can we just let some of you, if it's your first time and you're like, man, I finally got this person to come to church to me, and today it's the money thing. But I'm just telling you, I really think that everyone's going to leave here encouraged. I genuinely do. I don't believe what you see from these statistics is a money problem. I don't believe that because I read my Bible. This is not a money problem. This is a heart problem. This is not a problem of intention. It's an action problem. And so today I'm gonna break down Matthew chapter 6, a passage of Matthew chapter 6, to really quantify this and give it some wings. The message today is called the heart of generosity. The heart of generosity. I don't know if you know this or not. I kind of say this when I talk about money in the church just to kind of help you understand. Jesus talked about money in the 4 Gospels more than he talked about any other topic. And I brought receipts because some of the way you guys are looking at me, you don't believe me. Can I tell you, 288 verses in the 4 Gospels deal with money. That's more than prayer and faith combined. What does the church talk about most often? Prayer and faith. And yet, it's not what Jesus talked about most often. And can I tell you why? Because Jesus understood this had very little to do with money and a lot more to do with the heart. And Jesus has never been after your money. He's always been after your heart. And so if we look at what this passage tells us, then we'll understand that Jesus didn't talk about money because he wanted to take something from you. He talked about money because he wanted to free something in you. And today I believe there is going to be some freedom found in the people in this room that maybe you've never heard a message quite like this, and I'm going to teach you from Matthew chapter 6 today. We're going to read all 5 verses. It'll be behind me on the screen, and let's get into it. It says, "Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moths and vermin destroy and where thieves break in and steal." How many have heard this passage before, right? Okay. "But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven where moths and vermin do not destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal." Verse 21, "For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." Verse 22, "The eye is the lamp of the body, and if your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eyes are unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? No one can serve 2 masters. Either you will hate one and love the other, or you will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money." Dude, I'll tell you, this to me seems like such a Stone Moss moment. Like Jesus pulled a card out of my wallet. Like it seems like a squirrel. Like you went to 3 different topics, and every time I read this passage, it's like he's talking about like 4 different things in this passage. But can I just tell you, the more I study this passage, the more I realize it's not a squirrel moment for Jesus. It's not him getting distracted. It's him actually taking the every time he says something about this, he's going deeper into the process. And so I want to show you that framework that the Lord showed me this week about how Jesus, through this passage, is telling us this is not about the money, this is about our heart. And so I've wrote a working definition of generosity for this series. For 3 weeks, this is the working definition. Generosity is a posture of the heart. Notice here, this word is posture. It's not pressure. I'm not pressuring you to do anything. You don't have to give any money today. Say, just let your guards down. I'm not taking up an offering today, okay? It's a posture of the heart that chooses to trust God with what we have and reflect his nature through how we give. That's generosity. So before generosity is an action, it's an attitude. And God wants to free you. So I wrote it down like this. This isn't a fundraising series. It's a freedom series. It's a series for God to break off these mindsets that you have concerning this topic and realize that when I talk about generosity today, I'm not just talking about giving money to the church. There's so much more wrapped up in this idea of generosity, and I hope that you learn that today. I want you to take notes because this, I think, will be impactful if you were to go back and look at it. Point number one today, generosity reveals where your heart is. Matthew chapter 6, verse 21, it says, "For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." In other words, Jesus, right out the gate, he ties treasure in our heart, and he says these things are two pedals on the same bike. They're tethered together. You can't separate your treasure in your heart, which is important because we have this mindset that I give to what I care about. But that's not what Jesus is saying. He's not saying that you give to what you care about. He says you'll care about what you give to. That's a big difference. That's a big difference. How do I know? Because there are people in this room that gave to Legacy last year, and they've seen the fruits of that. And I would like to imagine that they care a lot more about what God has done since they've invested in it. Because what they've given to, they now care about. How many have ever invested in the stock market? How many of you have ever invested in the stock market, a specific company so heavily, like put a large percentage of your net worth into a company and didn't care about the shareholder meetings? Nobody, right? Because if you're investing in something, you're going to care about it. So I wrote it down like this: your money doesn't follow your heart. That's important to know. Your money doesn't follow your heart follows your money. It's so weird it's different than even like that. The Lord gave me that this week because it's kind of like we think the church that's why you have a problem in the church with people not donating, because it's not that they don't want to, it's just that they haven't. And so because they haven't, they don't care to. It's only when you do that you begin to care about it, right? You know who doesn't care about talking about generosity and stewardship and money in our church? The ones that are giving. The ones that don't are the ones that, what's he doing with that money? Well, I'm not doing anything with it, okay? I don't steward the money here. Our trustees do. So that's your first thing. Okay, so we got plenty of accountability. Second of all, you have to understand that if you're not giving to it, you're not going to care about it as much. And I hear the comments, I've never really seen the need to give to the church. They're doing just fine. Well, listen, when you give, you will care more about the church than you ever have. Can I just tell you? You will. And so I wrote it down. If you buy an Apple stock, you're going to care about the quarterly earnings. If you buy a home, you're going to know what Lowe's and Home Depot are. If you give towards missions, you're going to care more about missions. Because what you give to, your heart always chases your investment. So some of you need to start investing into your marriages more. Because your heart's going to chase your investment. Okay. Y'all don't want to be preached to this morning. That's okay. It's all right. Y'all thought it was just about money. It's not. Giving shapes your desire. Generosity forms your affections. And so if your treasure sets the direction of your heart, that's why this topic makes us squirm a little bit. I see some squirming people this morning. You want to know why? Because this topic is not a map. It's a mirror. It doesn't show us where to go. It reflects who we are. And so I've been some of you, not all of you, I've been some of you in a seat where you've never given to a church. Can I be honest with you? And a lot of people know this. You've been coming to this church for a long time. I was on staff as a pastor of a church for years before I ever gave a cent. I know. I was not the senior pastor, but I was a pastor on staff that not only was not tithing, was not giving at all. That's my testimony. And my pastor says, you got to start somewhere, dog. And I'm like, I can't afford it. He said, start at 1%, tithe 10% on your 10%, which was 1%. And you know how hard it was for me to give like $25 to the church? I'm just being real with y'all. Every time when I first started giving, I used to think, how many things could I have bought with that $25? But you know what? Eventually, I started caring more about the church. And when I walked in the bathroom, and when there were splashes of water on the mirror, because the team hadn't switched it between first and second service yet, I'd pick out a paper towel and I'd wipe the mirror because I didn't want anyone to see that I started picking up trash in the hallways. That wasn't my job. I started to care about more what I invested in. We should understand that money doesn't change you. It just reveals you. It reveals you. And if money is a mirror that reflects your heart, then that tells me that every purchase becomes a reflection of your trust. So what do I mean by that? When you buy things, you're enacting trust. How many of you have given your money to Starbucks worker and got asked for a coffee, and you trusted that they were going to give you a Pepsi? What you give to, you trust that barista. You give them your money and you're expecting to get a coffee back, right? Because you trust the barista. When you give to God, you're trusting Him, His provision. And some of us trust Amazon 2-day shipping more than we do God's provision for our life. I know, y'all, everyone is, it's okay. It's okay. I'm uncomfortable too, all right? But because money is a trust test, every dollar is telling a story about your faith. And so my objective is, and my wife and I do this every year, we look at our budget and we say, does the money we're spending, does this money that we're spending, does it say me first or does it say God first? And so sometimes we have to course correct because sometimes it says me first a little too much. Number 2, generosity, it shapes how you see. It shapes how you see. So again, I told you this wasn't a squirrel moment for Jesus. If you go to the next verse, verse 22, right after the treasure verse, in verse 22 it says, the eye is the lamp of the body, and if your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eyes are unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? When you first read this, you think that Jesus is getting off topic, but he's not. He's actually going deeper. Because what he's telling us is that if you understand Hebrew culture, whenever you hear good eye, you think it means someone who's generous, someone who's caring, someone who extends generosity. When you hear bad eye, it means someone who's stingy. If someone has a bad eye, they're keeping to themselves. Don't come into my yard. You mow your grass, I'll mow mine. That kind of mentality. But Jesus is saying, listen, if your eyes are generous, your life will be full of light. But if your eyes are selfish, everything around you will get dark. That's why I wrote it down like this, that generosity doesn't just change what you have, it changes what you see. Someone who's generous begins to see opportunity instead of burden. Instead of seeing the church as something they have burden, you Christians, you'll have to give 10% of your money. That's such a burden. And some of you bring that mentality into the church, and every time you give, it's a burden. And it's because your eyes are, what Jesus says, are dark. They're selfish, and everything around you as a result, it's dark too. God gave me this idea this week of, I don't know if you know this or not, but do you know the difference between a mirror and a glass? A mirror and a glass, like a window? A mirror is made of the same material. It just has a silver metal lining in the back of it that keeps the light from going through it and reflects what's in front of it instead of letting light pass through it. Generosity, what greed does is, generosity allows you to see the opportunity. When greed is involved in your life, it's like a mirror, and greed puts this thin layer of silver on the back of your window, and now you can't see out of that. All you see is yourself. So greed, in essence, it gives you, it's this thin layer, it doesn't let you see through. Generosity, it wipes away that silver behind your soul, and it allows you to see God and to see others again. It allows you to go into the grocery store, instead of reflecting on how much money you're going to spend on an $8 bag of cereal or whatever it is these days. Instead, you now see the person in the aisle who cannot afford to buy that bag of cereal, and you buy it for them. See how it switches? Generosity gives you the ability to see opportunity and not burden. But it's that silver layer behind that I have this mirror in my office. Maybe I'll bring it out for second service. But if I pull this mirror out and I look into it, all that is keeping me from seeing that through that mirror is a silver layer in the back, and that represents greed. It represents me. Generosity opens your eyes to what God is doing. And I believe more people saw an opportunity last year during Legacy than they did a burden. Because if they hadn't, we wouldn't be here. We had less than 200 people attending our church this time last year. We had less than 70 members on our serve team this time last year. We had 2 services last year. Every number I'm referencing, we're talking 200-300% increase in those. We're seeing 650 people between all 3 services now. We just celebrated 235 serve team members, up from 70 to 235. That kind of increase became possible because somebody saw an opportunity instead of a burden. That's what generosity does. And this church is really the building that you're in is really a story of that. We gave to church plants last year that are excelling and seeing people get saved. We gave the Church Multiplication Network last year. They've planted I don't know how many churches this year, but they're planting churches with your money. We gave to Convoy of Hope every natural disaster that happened over the last year. You were a part of. Those were all things that we gave to last year that you were a part of because of your generosity, because you saw an opportunity. So when we talk about legacy this whole month, the next 3 weeks, we're talking about these opportunities that we have, not burdens that we have. And I got to share I sent the group, some of you are in here this morning. I texted you last night to give you an update that we were at $81,000, but someone gave me another check this morning for $10,000. We're at $91,000 for legacy. Hold on a second. What I'm telling you before it ever hit you, these are people who see opportunities. It's not about the money. I'm not celebrating the money this morning. I'm celebrating God's faithfulness. He's working through people and he's showing them that he is capable of doing more. And some of you today, will see this as a burden still. Some of you will see, they got $80-something thousand to raise. I ain't going to be one of them. And that's between you and the Lord. But some of you today, there's going to be a shift. And you're going to start recognizing that generosity has little to do with money and it has everything to do with our heart. And I want my heart to be healthy. I want your heart to be healthy. God wants our heart to be healthy. So if generosity affects what you see, it will inevitably reveal who you serve. Number 3, generosity reveals who your master is. In verse 24, the next verse. We're going through this exegetically if you can't tell. So it's literally every verse. Jesus is telling the story and going deeper into what generosity means. And verse 24 says, no one can serve 2 masters. Either you will hate one and love the other, or you will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. But you know what's really hard about this? Everyone look at me right now. Let me tell you something what's hard. Let me tell you what's hard about this. Did you know that money and God both promise the same thing? If you serve me, I'll make sure your needs are met. But there's only one of them that can keep that promise. That's why I wrote it down like this, that money is a great servant, but a terrible master. And some of us are innocent in it, but we've made money our master. And as a result, when we talk about things like this in the church, you just immediately go the pessimistic route. Or you just immediately go into the route that, another church that wants my money. And the reality of it is that's so not true. I would just tell you this, we're not a broke church. All glory to God. This is not because we need your help to turn the lights on. I mean, if y'all don't give, the church is shutting down. We're so far from that. This has little to do with us raising money to keep the lights on. This is because we believe God wants to do something in you. And he uses you to accomplish what he wants to do in his church. When your money masters you, you live tight-fisted, anxious, and afraid. But when God masters you, you live open-handed, joyful, and free. Generosity says, Lord, you're my source. And I'll use money, but my money will never use me. Greed says something completely different. So this week, next couple months, whatever you're looking at, your finances, how you're going to apply this to your life is, I want you to look at every paycheck that you have as a lordship decision. I know that's super tough. That's super tough. But that's what the Bible tells us. You can't have 2 masters. So I'm not telling you to give all your money, although that's what, if you read the New Testament, I love when people try to argue that tithing's Old Testament. And first of all, yes, it is Old Testament. But you don't want to know what the New Testament says, because you don't just give 10%, you give all of it. So choose your heart. And we'll talk a little bit about that next week. But to recap, if generosity reveals our trust, which it does, if it shapes our sight, which it does, and if it shows us who's in charge of our life, and it does, then we should understand that Matthew chapter 6 is not a financial lecture from Jesus. Matthew chapter 6 is actually a heart exam. It's Jesus looking at our heart and trying to find, is there life in there? When my twins were not born yet, we had this, I think it's called a Doppler. Is that what it's called? Doppler. And my wife would put it on her stomach every night. And she was checking for heartbeats of the babies. Because when you're twins, there's all the things. And every night she would try it. There was almost like a little nervousness, because we wanted to hear the heartbeat. And sometimes baby B, which is Crew, and you know what kind of troublemaker he is, there were just some nights that she would try so hard to find that heartbeat. She'd move it all around, and it would take a long time to find it. And it would get scary sometimes. But every single time she found it. And I feel like in some ways that's what God is doing in your heart through this series. He's trying to search for it. Am I really the Lord of their life? And he's doing this number. I believe he's going to find your heartbeat. I believe that he's going to work in your heart to be more generous in your marriage, to be more generous in your kids, to be more generous in your workplace. And generosity is a good testimony. I don't know of many times that when I'm generous, it doesn't open the door for me to share the gospel with somebody. I don't know if you've noticed that or not. But every time I'm generous, it gives me the opportunity to share God's faithfulness. So I don't correlate this $91,000 as just a favor that we've received before ever telling the church. I correlate with that God's blessing and him seeing a heartbeat of Limitless Church. He can bless that. So hear me, church. God's not listening for your money to hit a bucket today. He's listening for your heartbeat. And he wants to know, does he have your trust? And listen, I know that I'm not stupid. I have social media. I understand. There's a lot of, it seems like there's a lot. It's probably not. It's probably just algorithm, but it seems like there's a lot of things with church and money and pastors and falling and all of this stuff. And be honest with you, it's because all of us are human, and there's always a piece of us, if we don't fully give to God, we can fall into the world. But that's why you have things set up like accountability structures and boards and all those things, that if you do it rightly. And I just want to encourage you, being in this church, I know that hesitation may be real, but I wrote it down, don't let someone else's misuse rob you of God's truth. I'm not standing up here begging for money. I believe it's going to come regardless if you give it or not. It's just God's going to do it. I'm more concerned as your pastor for your heart. Because Jesus talked about it. Do you know that equates to 288 verses? That equates to 10%. 1 out of every 10 times that Jesus spoke, it was about money. It kind of makes me convicted. I told Jordan, he's part of our trustees, he's always the one that says, when are you doing a giving series? When are you talking about stewardship? When are you talking about money? And sometimes I feel convicted. I told him this. I told the trustees, I feel convicted this year. I didn't really talk about it a lot. And we don't talk about it. God's been plenty, but you don't talk about it because you need it. You talk about it because you want people's heart to be healthy. So I'm going to try to do better next year, Jordan, okay? I'll try to do better next year. But this isn't about pressure. It's about our posture. And my posture is, I understand what Jesus did for me 2,000 years ago at Calvary. What does the Bible say? John 3:16. For God so loved the world that because he gave, I know his character is generosity. And I just want to be like him. Maybe you're in this room today and you've heard the message on generosity, and maybe it's tugged at your understanding of what it means for Jesus. I mean, if you didn't know this, the most generous thing that you could ever do is to die for somebody. And Jesus, the only Son of God, died for you, for me. So before you ever give a cent to the church, you should understand that Jesus died for you whether you gave a cent or not. And he loves you. And he chose you. And you're loved by him. And there's grace. There's a free gift available to every person in this room today. It's the gift of salvation. And if you don't know Jesus as your personal Lord and Savior, let me just tell you, there's no greater gift that you can receive